Hello everyone. I wanted to do a video on some of the physical symptoms you may be feeling as you shift into higher states of consciousness, as your body shifts into higher frequencies. What are the physical symptoms that we may be feeling, and why are we feeling them? Like, explain this to me, please, right? So these are symptoms that many of us may be experiencing for the first time. This could be physical symptoms that you've been experiencing for quite some time, or that you used to experience and you're not experiencing anymore. There is no better than or worse than. There's no reason necessarily like, oh, I'm in a higher frequency and that's why I'm not necessarily feeling these physical symptoms anymore, right? We like to put things in like a category, better than or less than, higher than, lower than. And it's just about how your body's processing the high frequency light coming in, okay? So these physical symptoms can be anything from massive headaches, ringing of the ears, vertigo. Vertigo is something that many of us are feeling right now. A lot of people in my Patreon community have been talking about that. What else? Nauseousness, body tingling, body itches, rashes, weird bumps that may be coming up, all kinds of different physical things. So let me explain what's happening energetically. So high frequency light is coming down onto the earth plane and into the human form from the sun. It's not the regular sunlight that we see that has the vitamin D. It is a much higher frequency. You cannot see it and you cannot feel it for the most part. The Schumann resonance will pick up that light. That's what it is actually measuring. It's the earth receiving that light, right? And so when the Schumann resonance spikes up, there's a higher frequency of light coming down onto the form. That same light is coming into the physical form, okay? And what happens is the physical body has three ways of moving through that frequency, these high frequency lights, moving it through the form. So first it acclimates to it, then it assimilates it, and then it anchors it. Okay, so first, this high frequency light is vibrating in a frequency that is much higher than your physical form. So it enters into the form and it has to acclimate. The body needs to acclimate it. So when the acclimation process is happening, this high frequency energy is just starting to sort of swirl around in the body, right? You may feel like during a time where you're receiving the light and it's acclimating, you may feel like you're in a higher vibration. You may feel like, oh my God, there's a higher frequency of light right now that's in my body. Those are the moments where you're kind of feeling those higher states of consciousness. You're in an elated state or a higher state, right? That's the acclimation process. It hasn't anchored in yet. It hasn't assimilated yet. So you're feeling kind of high, that high feeling. So it's this energy that's just sort of moving through the body. Just imagine it like clouds, right? Or cellular structures or whatever, however you want to visualize it, right? And then what happens is the body starts to assimilate it. So the end result is that the body needs to anchor that high frequency light into the body, into the form, so that the form can hold that frequency going forward in every now. That's ascension. Ascension is high frequency light comes into the body and the body acclimates, assimilates, and anchors it. And then the body is able to hold that higher frequency in every now moment for the human. Okay? That's how you anchor into the next dimensional field. This takes a long time, and the acclimation, assimilation, and anchoring can take a while. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not like boom, the light comes in through these eclipses or these full moons or these portals that open, right? These powerful energetic gateways that people talk about. It doesn't happen overnight. This can happen over a couple weeks, over a couple months. It depends on your body and the density that it's holding. So first it acclimates. So you're feeling sort of like a higher frequency. You're sort of buzzing, right? Maybe vibrating. And then it goes away. The next stage is assimilation. So the assimilation process is when all that high frequency light starts to settle down. It starts to move into the cells and the organs and the blood and the veins and all the things that are physically into the body. It starts to assimilate in. So you can imagine it as like a calming down. It starts to calm down. It starts to move and get embodied. And this is when you start to feel the more uncomfortable sort of experiences. This is by the way, I forgot to say that when it is, you can have these sort of physical sensations, all of the vertigo and the headaches and the nauseousness during any phase, the acclimation, assimilation, or anchoring phase. You're going to feel any of these physical symptoms through any of those three phases, right? It's not like, oh, during the acclimation phase, you're only going to experience headaches. During the assimilation, you're only going to experience vertigo, right? So you're going to experience these physical sensations at any part of these three phases. But I do want to touch on vertigo because it's a little bit different. But anyways, assimilating is the light starts to calm down and starts to embody into the physicality of the physical form. And so there's physical sensations that you're going to feel. A lot of times during this assimilation process, this is when the emotional body starts and the mental body starts to release the dense consciousness that is held inside those subtle bodies. So first the light kind of flushes through, it starts to acclimate, right? And it rattles the denser consciousnesses. And then once that energy starts to settle in, it starts to really push the density through. It starts to push that dense consciousness, the paradigms, programs, belief systems, addictions, behaviors, all of it. It pushes it into your field so that you can look at it like, holy shit, look at this that's in the body. Look at this that's in the emotional body, the mental body, the physical body, right? That happens during the assimilation process. A lot of rashes, a lot of illness, a lot of headaches, a lot of ringing of the ears, right? This is all part of the assimilation process. And then what happens is the anchoring. So everything sort of starts to get quiet. It's almost like it flatlines. And you're sort of just going about your day now, and you're not necessarily feeling the ringing, you're not necessarily feeling headaches or any of that stuff. And you're not even necessarily feeling the density anymore coming up, right? It's just sort of flatlined, like what happened? Everything's back to normal, right? But you're feeling just a tad bit different, right? That's anchoring the light. That's when your body's anchoring it, which means that high frequency light that was stirring around and that started to come down and embody into the physicality, the physical form absorbs it completely. It now holds it in its form. The form is holding it. The form has become it, right? And it shifts the form's frequency just a little bit. And so when you come out of the phase, there's this aspect of you that's kind of flatlined. You're kind of normal, like, oh, I'm not going crazy today. I'm a little bit more normal, but yet you're different. You're seeing things differently. You're responding differently to people. You're feeling just different because you've shifted into a little bit higher frequency. Now, again, this process can take a couple days. Rarely does that happen, but it's possible. I mean, that would be intense, but it's possible. It could take a couple weeks or it could take a couple months, right? It really depends on how much density is in your form and how long it takes for that process to happen. Now, that process that I just described is happening over and over and over again right now. Every time you hear somebody say a portal has opened, we're stepping into a gateway, we've got a huge amount of light coming in, just know that those three phases are now going to take place in your physical form. And you're going to perhaps feel certain symptoms. I don't feel a lot of symptoms anymore. I've been feeling vertigo and I've been feeling some ringing of the ears recently. Exhaustion, of course, is always part of it. But I don't have a huge amount of the physical symptoms any longer, right? The less density that you're holding, the less physical sensations you're going to have. Now, please don't make yourself better than or worse than, higher than, lower than, right? We don't want to categorize. But on an energetic level, when you have less density, you're going to have less physical symptoms when the light comes in. But what I want to share now is vertigo, because vertigo is fascinating. So let me give you a little bit of a rundown on vertigo. I want you to imagine that when high frequency light is coming into the form, I want you to see it as like jolts, right? Jolts of clouds dropping in. They always show me, my guides always show me consciousness as clouds, light frequency as clouds, right? Because then you can kind of hold it. So these jolts of light are coming in and they're in these like clouds. And let's just say that one cloud of this high frequency light is just kind of stirring around somewhere in the physical form. And as it's acclimating, it just gets kind of stuck, right? Like it doesn't really go anywhere. And the other light, for whatever reason, is just moving through and it's starting to assimilate. But this high frequency gets stuck, right? It's just holding in its high frequency. So during the assimilation process, the frequency of the light starts to quiet, right? So it's not as intense. It comes in and it's massively intense, and then it starts to assimilate and it quiets down a little bit, right? So here we have this little pocket of high intensity light, and the rest of the body has been assimilating for a couple of days. All of a sudden, out of the blue, for no apparent reason, this gets jolted out of its field. It gets jolted out of its sort of stuck space and moves directly into the body, meaning it's already in the body, but it gets jolted around, and then the body just takes it, right? The body just pulls it in and like almost like sucks it in, right? And when that happens, it creates a vertigo feeling, a feeling of, holy shit, what just happened? I like something just whacked my equilibrium. Vertigo is when your equilibrium in your body is out of whack. And what that means is that the energetic field has just been rumbled by an earthquake. If you've ever been through an earthquake, your equilibrium gets out of whack. You can get nauseous, sick to your stomach, dizzy, lightheaded, right? All of these feelings that you feel when you have vertigo, like when you're on a boat or when you're reading a book in an airplane or in a car in the back seat, that is your energetic field rattling around, right? And it's not holding an aligned state. So vertigo in the ascension process is when a pocket of high frequency light gets stuck somewhere, and for whatever known reason, there's not a reason for it, it just randomly jolts out, and that jolting is so intense for the body, the physical body, that it jolts it. And you feel this vertigo. You're like, what the freak was that? And you have to kind of sit down. You may get a headache. You may get a little bit nauseous or lightheaded, and it comes out of nowhere, right? It's like all of a sudden you just feel that jolt of energy. That's what's happening. This high frequency jolt is being literally consumed by the physical form. The physical form is like, oh, let me take that in. Hold on. And it tries to absorb it or assimilate it as quickly as possible to try to kind of catch up with the other frequency, the other light that's already been absorbed and assimilated. So that's what happens. And so when you're going through your days and you're thinking about like moments where you're having ringing in the ears or headache, right? Headache is when there's a lot of light coming in and the body is doing its best to pull it through, right? So it can get stuck because it's working its way through the physical form. Nauseousness, of course, is just the energy rattling through, the energy trying to assimilate down. Depending upon how dense your form is, you may be more nauseous at certain times, right? But this is the process. This is how the physical body ascends. And it's those 3 simple, easy steps. And it's all physics. It's all energy. And so when you start to look at your everyday and you're watching yourself, let's say one day you're really craving denser foods and the next you're really craving just like fruit and juice and that kind of thing, that's your body. Your body's in a higher state when it only wants light foods. Your body's in a denser state when it wants the denser foods. Now, there is nothing wrong with your body wanting denser foods. It is an absolute paradigm in the 3rd dimension to believe that you need to be eating high vibe foods in order to ascend. That is a paradigm. You can buy into it and it can be your reality, or you can not buy into it and just listen to your body because the body knows. So you want to start listening to where your body's at because your body's doing all the work. Your body's ascending, your body's shifting you being the ego personality, right? And it's the one that's hard at work doing this because you've already got all this high frequency light in you moving around, and its job is to shift you into the next highest version of you that's already in you. That's its job. It's got a massive job, right? It's like the head of the choo-choo train. And It's the one pulling the entire train. The body is pulling the entire ascension process. And what is so magical about this now moment that we are in, and the magic of why so many of you are in physical form right now, is to experience the physicality of shifting consciousness in physical form. It's never been done before like this, in this density. We are shifting consciousness within the physical form. Who's in charge? The physical form. The physical form is doing this. We're just along for the ride to experience it, right? The physical form deserves to be honored and cherished and loved and seen as a beautiful aspect of you, not as an unconscious form that is just here to hold you. It's the one doing the work to move you into these higher frequencies. It's the one anchoring the light to get you to hold the higher frequencies. It's the one anchoring you into the fifth dimensional field. If the body doesn't do it, you're not going anywhere. And you can't tell the body anything. The body is going to tell you. So when you're moving through this process, acclimate, assimilate, anchor, honor everything you're feeling. Know that there's nothing wrong when you're having these symptoms. There's a lot of physical symptoms that we're going to have, right? And just recognize that it's energy and it's not good, bad, right, wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not doing anything bad, right? It's just the physical symptoms are part of the ascension path. So I hope this was helpful in some way, shape, or form. Honor your darn beautiful physical forms. They are doing overtime right now for us. And I love you all so much. Thank you for being here. And I'll see you next time. Mwah. Bye.